Let's now cast some light on our vehicle. Okay, so we will need to go into the base mesh. So let me just unhide it. Then go into edit mode. Then we will need to pick this vertex, and with this we need to select basically the shape of the headlight, like the outer rim of it. Then duplicate it, and then let me turn on my stream keys. Just separate by selection. Now unhide the base, just hide the base mesh, unhide this new part here, turn down the subdivision counter, and uncheck on the rim, because this will be glass. Okay, so fill this area in. Shouldn't be too hard. Just like that. And fill this place here. Just make this equal. Okay, that's it. Our lights are done. There's just a few more steps before they're done, for real. So yeah, we need to untwist this because you can see it's pretty janky. So I'll just select those and extrude them instead. You could use the shear tool to just switch their angles, or you can just place them like I'm doing here. Just like that with the shear tool. Which is very handy sometimes, I just don't use it enough. And let's just tighten this area right here. And feel free to extrude or to add stuff. If it's missing, you can even scale it up a bit. Doesn't matter if it intersects with the body, as long as it's not too much. And now let's just thicken this. So for this I need to edit it so it doesn't pop out as much. Let's just rotate that and pull that back in. Yeah, a tiny bit. And there we go. We have the shape defined now. And let's just rename this to headlight cover or whatever. And let's give it a glass material. This ones need to be as light as possible, so it's okay to go pure white for this one. Simply because we want as much light as possible to go through it. And same as for the other car parts, we will make a rim around it. And so for now, I'll just extrude it and separate it and select the outer region of faces, just like that. Create a second slot for a glass material and a third one with the plastic material. Just like that. Assign it the second glass material and set the offset to 1. Okay, for this part that we created, which is just the contour but extruded on the y-axis, let's just slide that back, just like this, and add loop cut to tighten that. Okay, let me go into local view, just quickly. And we will start filling this area. So select those two edges and press F. Make sure you have the same number of loop cuts on both sides. So I'll just add some here. Forgot one. And same for this. Now this looks pretty alright. You can reduce the thickness if you have some glitches like this. In real life, it would not be 3 millimeters thick either. It would be like 1 to 1.5. So chrome. Okay, that's good. Let's put that in so to have nice reflections, and put a material offset to it so that the outside is actually plastic and the inside is chrome, just like that. Perfect. Okay, now edit both objects, and with the shear tool we will angle this so it fits better the other lines of the car. So let me pull that back in, just like that. Okay, now let's hide this and work on the internals of the headlight. So add a circle and then reduce its number of vertices to like 8 or 12, and then align it to view. Scale it down until it's about this size, doesn't really matter as long as it fills the headlight cavities. So delete the 3 bottom ones and flatten the top 3. Then we will scale this on the x-axis. Move those up to create kind of a semicircle. Then inside view, bring it up to where the headlight casing is, and then we will extrude it once and rotate it, then extrude it another time and then flatten that. Let's try to keep the thickness consistent. Bring that in. Okay, now we need to set the origin to this joint here, so I put my 3D cursor there, and then I will add a mirror modifier on the y-axis and turn on clipping, and let's just add a subdivision surface modifier and tighten those edges. Shade it smooth. Then remove the x-axis and add a solidify modifier. Reduce the thickness to like 1 millimeters or 2. You can apply the scale if needed to get a more realistic view of what that thickness may be. So scale it up so it fills nicely the headlight internal housing. We'll add a glass material to it, and this one needs to be pure white as well. You can give it a blue tint or a slight color, but try not to go overboard with it. So I want it to be kind of a frosted glass and not perfectly clear, so I try to keep the roughness not at 0 exactly. Okay, now let's go into edit mode and select all of those vertices, then duplicate them and separate them into a new object. Then go into edit mode of that new object and extrude it on the y-axis. Then flatten it on the y-axis by pressing SZ0. Then extrude them to form like a closed cavity, and then just fill that face. Doesn't matter if it's an n-gon because it's flat. So shade that smooth, and we're going to need to add a edge loop here. And then we will make this not glass. So let me just flatten this using I and B. Okay, let's give it a black plastic material and then make the inside chrome like we did for the internals. So hide this and go into the modifier property and then add a material offset to it. So it's chrome inside. Let's unhide our internal glass really quickly. That's why it's important to name your objects so you're not looking for them that much. Okay, I will just add a loop cut here, make sure it's on both sides. Okay, now we'll need to add a icosphere and then reduce its subdivision number to 0 or even 1, and then add a subdivision surface back in. Slide this here then shade it smooth. Then we'll go into edit mode and just assign the back faces, so to speak, a black plastic or chrome material, and then the other ones will need to assign them a glass material, which too will be, an emissive material. You could do a glass material and then put the emissive inside, but it's kind of overkill in my opinion. So you will see in cycles what it looks like. That looks pretty good. Let me just reduce the roughness, my bad. So this just needs to be duplicated a bunch of times. So selecting all of them. Let me add the mirror modifier beforehand and put the object of mirror as the hood, so it mirrors on the other side using the hood origin instead of our little glass part. So you should have the same thing here and do this process for all of the light internals. So modifier, set the mirror object to the hood or to another empty object, whatever. Now we're going to duplicate them using Alt D and not Shift D. So when we edit one of them in edit mode, all of them will follow. So if we have to make changes, it will be much easier to do it this way. So I'll just make sure that I scale all of them equally, try to put them at an equal distance. And just like that, we're going to fill up some areas. To be honest, this is kind of an easy headlight to do because it's a lot of very small modules that fill up the space quite easily, but your design might be a lot harder, and for that I recommend CG Master's course or Natural Art Freak, where it shows in a lot more detail than me how to make headlights look good. But the key is a lot of reflective materials, very clear glass, and like a lot of details that will reflect lights and create a bit of chaos in it if you want. So I'm taking my time, I hope you're doing the same, and I'll just place all of them inside that cavity. And that's why you want to mirror them beforehand, because if we didn't, we would have had to restart by just adding a mirror modifier through each one of them. So always try to add your modifiers beforehand. Okay, let's see how this looks in cycles. Not bad. I would say it looks pretty good. It fits with the design. So we can just adjust the roughness based on preference. Let's now move on to the main headlight module. So I did this piece of trim and then just extrude it on the y-axis by removing it after that from the vertex group and then separating it into a new object. Add loop cuts here and there to tighten those gaps. And this will be kind of a headlight housing again. So we need to fill this. You can go the lazy way and just do a big end gun, but I would recommend to do at least some basic quads. Just like that. No big deal. Not a lot of efforts too. Let's remove that car paint and that black plastic and just keep the chrome material. You can try to see if it looks good in just black. So go for the base mesh, and then in edit mode, what we will do is duplicate the contour of the grill and then separating it into a new object. Hide that and turn on the visibility in render. Now in the modifiers, what we want to do is turn down the subdivision like always and then extrude this on the y-axis like we just did for the headlights. Shade it smooth. Add loop cuts, just like that. Pretty easy to be honest. And then remove the car paint and the chrome. And let's just fill this in. Let me turn on clipping on the mirror, just like this. Add loop cuts until you have the same number on the top and the bottom. And fill that area. Very nice. And a loop cut here to make it a bit tidier. Honestly, you don't need to worry too much about this one, since it's only to block light from passing through the whole car. There will be a much better grille later on, so don't worry about it if yours doesn't look that good. Okay, now for those, we're going to do the exact same thing. So just duplicate that part, then extrude it on the y-axis, then extrude it once and then inset. Move it in just like that and fill that area. Can go with an end gun for this one, doesn't really matter that much. Let's add some loop cuts here. And like that, shade it smooth, and we are good to go. I will just fuse those objects into one, and then rename them light blocker or something similar. Now let's experiment with color. I guess you did that already on your own. But then we will just make mine orange for the time being. And I think that pillar could be car paint too. So let's select those faces and separate the selection, just like this, and assign it a car paint material. You can rename it C pillar or whatever. Just like that. And that's it for this part. Now we have the headlights pretty much done, and we are set up for the rest of the front end.